Um, so we're situated, so we would like to acknowledge the land that we're situated on, reside on, work on the traditional territories of the several Indigenous nations that Sheridan College office is located on. So the traditional territories we're currently on include the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. These traditional territories are covered by the Dish with One Spoon Territory and the Two-Row Wam Treaty, which emphasizes the importance of joint stewardship, peace, and respectful relationships. And I encourage everyone to search up the treaties that you reside on and better learn about the connections you have to the land, how to be stewards to the land and allies to Indigenous communities. And I've done a personalized land acknowledgement. So as I have an environmental background, I am a settler on Turtle Island, and I'm Indigenous to another nation called Palestine. And I would like to deeply acknowledge and give gratitude to the land that sustains us, nourishes us physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I would like to acknowledge the land acknowledgement is continuous and of recognition, learning, allyship with the Indigenous communities, and does not just stop on acknowledging the land we reside on, since colonialism is not of the past, but also the present. And as I mentioned, my Palestinian heritage, so how that connects me to the land is have like generations of occupation and displacement, and no right of return, exile from my own ancestral land. So the connection to land for me is through a lot of herbs, so like olive oil, thyme, and I'm very grateful to be on Turtle Island for generations that have become a home to me, and have a strong connection through nature. So before we begin the session, I would like everyone to take a few minutes to self-reflect on what aspect of this land you are thankful for. It can be the trees, the soil, water, whatever it is. So take this moment to recognize how much it has given to you, and how much and what it means for you to be here on this land. And if you would like to close your eyes while self-reflecting, you can. And when we come back, we're kind of gonna reaffirm our commitment, responsibility, improving like relationships among our Indigenous nations, and improving our own understanding of the Indigenous land, people, and culture. And I'll give a few minutes for like self-reflection, and then we will continue on to the workshop. So we're gonna continue to the next slide, where we will be talking about impact and the entrepreneurship and what EDGE is about. So EDGE is a vibrant community of people from different backgrounds, walks of life, who believe entrepreneurship can make a lasting change in society. And we support change makers as they explore entrepreneurship approaches to create a more equitable and sustainable world. And a little bit of what we do. So we help founders grow ideas, ventures that support a triple bottom line approach. So people, planet, profit. And we offer mentorship, learning programs, inclusive community, co-working spaces, and funding. And we connect Sheridan students to opportunities to learn and work with startups, collaborate with community partners to support impact entrepreneurs in the region. And if you would like to stay connected, we have put our social media handles, and I'll keep it up so you can take a picture or like add it as well, so you can stay in the loop of other workshops we have, other events that we're doing. And I will be giving it over to Marcelo to kind of give a little bit more details about the programs that we offer, and a little bit more detail about how you can get involved.
Thank you so much, Amal. Welcome, everybody. We know it's the evening after maybe a hard day of work, so we're really thankful that you're here sharing with us. Well, if you can please go to the next slide, Amal. Thank you, Amal, again for that amazing introduction and the land acknowledgement. Amazing. We would like to show you very amazing and very, amazing news for us. We're very happy about this. If you want to be a part of EDGE and are looking for support to get your ideas off the ground, we're excited to introduce new memberships in our organization. So if you are a Sheridan student joining it, you get this absolutely free if you're an active current Sheridan student, and you will get access to learning modules about entrepreneurship and change making, access to the launch at HMC, the HMC campus, up to 2 hours of advising to help support your ideas, and much more. If you're not a student at Sheridan, but you're eager to be part of EDGE and get some support for something you're working on in the impact entrepreneurship space, I want to benefit from peer and mentorship support. Our community membership is for you. It includes access to in-person activities and sessions for free, discounts on meeting room rentals, access to member directory, startup perks, subscription to the EDGE newsletter, and drop-in access to the EDGE Lounge. If you have been looking for affordable and centrally located co-working space in the heart of Mississauga, we have co-working memberships starting as low as $100 a month. And this includes hot desk access, access to kitchenette with all-day coffee and tea, meeting room time and discounts. You can also add on lockers, mailing services, and 24/7 access to the space. The best news is that for a limited time, you can access a free trial for the community or co-working memberships only until November 30th, 2022. Please connect with Noreen Javed for more information, or use the QR codes to sign up. These are the QRs. Let us know or reach out to us if you want to know more. We will be also very happy to like guide you around with this new membership model that we are just inaugurating at EDGE. I'm going to include Noreen's email here in the chat in case you want to. Oh, I just did a direct message. Sorry, somebody was to me. Oh, hi, Parvarja. Hold on, let me put it there. Everyone. It's really nice to see familiar faces here, and we're super happy to see you. If you're a Sheridan alumni, we do have some perks for you too, so please reach out. The community membership it has an online access. We have an app there, so we invite you to look into explore the link and get acquainted to the resources that are supported there. We have the app. You can also reach out to us directly via email or via the phone, or we have a chat access in your website. So please reach out to us. We're super happy to accommodate your needs. And as you, for people who already know us, you know that we're super flexible in terms of like working out with your agenda and your needs and whatever supports you need. Amal, please, the next slide. So just a really quick reminder about our program, Social Impact Catalyst. If you're interested in taking your entrepreneurial knowledge to the next level and have a social impact idea you want to bring to reality, Social Impact Catalyst, powered by RBC Future Launch, is a program for you. This is a 14-week program where youth between the ages of 15 and 29 learn about social impact, entrepreneurship, and how to lead a social venture. SIC provides you with a community of entrepreneurs, one-on-one mentorship support, promotion of your venture, $2,000 honoraria, and deep learning sessions and participation in our Changemakers Summit. If your co-op is eligible, you can also acquire your co-op credit by joining Social Impact Catalyst. Application for our next cohort open in October. So please stay tuned with us and make sure to join our newsletter. So you will be one of the first people to join our cohort in winter. And talking about the Youth Changemakers Summit, Amal, if you please can include the Eventbrite link in our chat. We are very happy to announce the first in-person event that we're going to be having in our space, the Youth Changemakers Summit. It's been 3.5 years waiting for having something in person and get together. We're planning an amazing event, super engaging. Please look into the Eventbrite link that Amal is going to put in the chat to look for more details. And on that note, we will also like to invite you to the next sessions. Amal, if you can please change the slide. Thank you. So we have these 2 upcoming sessions. Both of them are in person, so you're super welcome to come to join us. The first one, how will your venture make a difference, is going to be demystifying the whole theory of change and how you can use it in your benefit in your venture. And then we have also Explore with Edge Startup Connections. And this is all about networking for your startup. So please look into, thank you for putting, Amal, the link for the Youth Summit and for the upcoming sessions. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And finally, for those, I know all of you have been very patient in listening to us talking about Edge or organization, but we are now at the time in which we're going to introduce our facilitators tonight. So we have in the room Kelvin Tran and Prasika Selvaracha. Thank you, Prasika. Thank you, Kelvin, for being here. Kelvin is a senior account specialist at Ownr. He specializes in helping aspiring Canadian entrepreneurs launch their businesses properly the first time. His genuine interest in the startup landscape of Canada is a true asset to the entrepreneurs he serves. Kelvin's experience working with the startups like Appleboard, is that okay, Kelvin, the right pronunciation, Appleboard? Yes, allows him to provide seasoned and timely advice. On the other hand, Prasika here, thank you, Prasika, for being here again, is an account specialist at Ownr and has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs take the important step of incorporating their business. Prasika's background in data analytics and her degree in psychology allows her to pay close attention to detail. At the same time, her caring demeanor helps her to provide excellent guidance to startups. Thank you again, Prasika, and we are so happy to have you here again, and the room is all yours.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Marisol and Amal, for the introduction. We're excited to be here with everyone today. Obviously, as Marisol mentioned, maybe a long day at work, maybe you have some kids in the background eating dinner. We're excited to obviously have the opportunity to present to you and share a little bit more about what we do here at Ownr. So I'll look to pull up my screen right here just so that I can, of course, share my slides. And can I just get a quick thumbs up if everyone's able to see this? Yep, awesome. So without further ado, happy to dive into this. This is what we have as our agenda for our presentation today. We're going to talk about the business structures that you can create, of course, here in Canada, and really talk about the differences, what might be a good fit for you, And of course, I'm highlighting the advantages and potentially disadvantages of exploring these options. We're going to go through a demo. So I've got my colleague Prasika with me on this call. So she'll take us through a demo and show you exactly how it works and how you can do it on Ownr in just literally 15 minutes. That is how simple it is to incorporate on Ownr. And of course, we're going to dive into some of the details of what does the day-to-day look like of running your own business? What are some of the things you need to do after incorporation? What are some of the ongoing compliance aspects that you need to remember and maintain when you're incorporating or starting a business here in Canada? And then finally, I know there's a coupon code at the end of this presentation that all of you here in attendance will be able to use on Ownr to get yourselves an even bigger discount on our prices, of course, to register your business. As Marisol already introduced us, my name is Kelvin, and again, got my wonderful colleague Prasika with us here on the call today. And we're on the sales team here at Ownr, and really what we do is we talk to entrepreneurs like yourself every single day. On any given week, we could speak to hundreds of individuals and maybe thousands in a month, right? So we do get to hear the stories of everyone coming from all walks of life who have their own journey, their own specific businesses that they have in mind that they want to start up but want to explore. So we're always here to be a sounding board to understand what it is that you're looking to accomplish and trying to help you find the solutions that make the most sense to help you take this first step in starting your business. So we're really excited again to be here today. It honestly, it's a privilege for us. So diving right into this, I guess right before I get into this, actually, from a Q&A perspective, if you do have questions throughout this chat or throughout this presentation, throw them into the chat. Prasika and I will be monitoring that throughout, and we'll take pauses throughout just to be able to, give everyone a little bit of break of the information overload that this is about to be, but also, of course, to make sure that we're not, just glossing over topics if you are genuinely curious about one or two of the topics that we're bringing up. So with that said, diving into our business structure. So you may be familiar with some of these terms that you see on the screen here. Here in Canada, these are the three main types of business structures that you can create, whether as a sole proprietor, a partnership, or a corporation. It is important to note that there are two types of corporations that we don't directly support at Ownr. That would be a nonprofit organization as well as a professional corporation. If you are interested, of course, in setting up those types of businesses, we do encourage you to speak to a lawyer, or if it's a professional corporation, there's usually a governing body that you can speak to in terms of how to get it started and what the process is going to entail. So diving right in, what is a sole proprietorship? This is the most simple type of business structure that you can explore. If I decided to start selling, stationery items, pens, pencils, paper online through a retail, I'm effectively operating as a sole proprietor already, right? It really is a one-person business just looking to, get started, right? So that act in and of itself is already becoming a sole proprietor. You can attach a name to the business itself. So if I wanted to register a company called, Kelvin's Stationery Items or Station to Station, and I wanted to associate a business name with my day-to-day operations, that's where name registration comes in, and that's exactly where Ownr can step in and help you with your business registration. We recently launched a new campaign where it is as low as $50 to register a sole proprietorship, and because if folks aren't aware, we're actually affiliated with Royal Bank. So if you then set up your bank account with RBC, you'll actually be able to get a cashback offer of $100. So it's actually a really amazing offer if you are looking at the sole proprietorship route. So folks might be wondering, why would I go down the sole proprietorship route? What are the benefits in doing so? Well, as you can see right here, again, we've highlighted that a sole proprietorship is really simple. There aren't separate taxes. So all the money that you are making or all the money that you might be losing are tied to your personal income, right? So you don't have to file any separate taxes. You just file the taxes that you would, come April, like all of us here in Canada. There isn't a huge startup cost to do so. As I mentioned, it really can be the simple act of you just looking to start selling items, offering a service. And again, all the profits are, of course, directly tied to you. What's important to highlight here is that you and the business are not distinctively different. You're all mushed into the same, your business life, your personal life, it's all together. So that results in potential liability, right? So if anything were to happen to the business, your personal assets could be at risk. If you own a house, if you have a car, if you, your personal items, right? These things are at risk because if something were to happen to your business, again, you and the business are tied together one and the same. There is also a lack of continuity because as a sole proprietorship, you are the one running the business. It's a one-person operation, so it really is difficult to continue the business beyond yourself, right? There isn't really that transferable aspect of running a sole proprietorship. So those are the, again, pros and cons of why you would consider this in a really simple business. And we'll dive into what are some of the considerations you would explore a little bit later on. So what is a partnership then? Let me quickly highlight as well, Ownr doesn't directly service partnerships. This is, of course, a business structure that is really, really similar to everything that I just mentioned about a sole proprietor. It follows the exact same characteristics. You know, you don't have to file separate taxes. It's all tied to you. All profits are directly attributed to you. There is, again, unlimited liability to yourself. Only the difference is that it's 2 or more people. Right, so if you're a one-person business, you go with a sole proprietor. If there's at least 2 of you involved in this, you can go with a partnership. A partnership agreement is encouraged and is required, of course, to be able to maintain the understandings between both parties entering into this partnership, to say what are your responsibilities, what is the breakdown of what your day-to-day is going to look like. So that's the difference between a sole proprietorship and a partnership. I will pause right here. Are there any questions that have come up in the chat, perhaps, of understanding, the differences between the two? I know that, I'm just going to take a quick look here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna I can just let you know. So one of the questions that did come up was, can you have a sole prop and a corporation at the same time? I'll let you answer, because you're going to kind of get to that too.
Yeah, exactly. The answer is yes. You can have a sole proprietorship and a corporation. Obviously, these wouldn't be the same organization at the time. So, I could incorporate a company, again, where I'm selling stationery, and then completely in a separate business, maybe I'm a marketing consultant or I'm doing something else. There are entrepreneurs that we talk to who have multiple incorporations through Ownr, and it could be a mix between sole proprietorships and incorporations. So it really is the breakdown of what is each business that you're operating, and does it make sense to have it under the house of an incorporation or a sole prop? And something to highlight that might be a question that comes up is, can you go from a sole proprietorship to an incorporation? Short answer is yes. And really the process is, these are 2 separate legal entities. There isn't really a transition process where you go from a sole prop to an Inc. and you bring things over. You are setting up a brand new company altogether, but you can certainly bring the name over. So if I had Kelvin Stationery Items as a sole proprietorship and I wanted to incorporate it, I could transfer that business name over, but it would be a new entity with a new business number, a new bank account, and so forth.
So that also kind of answers, I think, Prabharya, your question regarding the difference between name registration and an incorporation. You're just reserving the name, versus the incorporation is actually creating a separate entity that you'll be using that name for.
Awesome. Yeah, these are great questions. So I'm sure when we dive into incorporations, there will be a little bit more. So here we go into really the meat and potatoes of incorporating a company in a little bit more of a complex structure, but definitely not too complicated, especially when you do it through Ownr, where we simplify the process. As I mentioned, you can incorporate it in as quickly as 15 minutes when you go through. So what is the difference between what I just highlighted with sole proprietorships and partnerships with an incorporation? Well, an incorporation is a separate business entity altogether. This is where we make that distinction between you as a person and you as a business. These are separated so that you have liability protection. If anything were to happen to the business, your personal assets would be protected, right? So if someone came after your company, because you got sued and they sued you for $1 million, but your company only had $500, you pay out the $500, and that's pretty much it. Even if you had $1 million of personal assets, they wouldn't be able to come after that. That's where liability protection comes in. Consider a corporation as almost like a legal person altogether, right? You can open a bank account as a corporation. You can enter into contracts. You can take out business loans. You can be sued. Right. So all of these things, again, are unique characteristics of having a corporation altogether. And to highlight some of these other points, it's transferable, right? We talked about with a sole proprietorship, it really is static. It's tied to you as one person and your life altogether. With ownerships of a corporation, that can be transferred through units of shares, which we'll dive into a little bit later on. It's also easier to raise capital to some extent. You can bring on investors, you can create financing agreements. It might be a little bit easier to take out loans. It might be easier to apply for grants, right? Because we talk to a lot of individuals who are looking for grants and loans. And usually when you're incorporated, that certainly helps out a little bit more. And some grants are tailored for incorporations only, right? So that might be a condition that's sort of required in order to apply for certain loans. Tax advantages we'll certainly get into very later on, but there are some tax advantages for incorporating a business if it might make sense for your personal situation. And again, that continued existence through the units of shares, which is your ownership, you can transfer that to people as we talked about and have the corporations continue to live on well beyond yourself as an individual. So by highlighting all of these aspects of liability protection and tax advantages, why wouldn't someone consider incorporation? Well, one reason might be cost, but it's important to note that the cost has considerably come down over the last couple of years when it comes to setting up your corporation. Traditionally, it was you would either go straight to the government or you would go to a lawyer. And it could, when you go through a professional service, it could be upwards of $1,500, $2,000. I spoke to someone today, they were quoted $4,000, right? It can be in that range. Through Ownr, you can incorporate a company here in Ontario for as little as $500, and you get $300 back when you open up your RBC Business Bank account. And of course, you get a coupon at the end of this presentation to really bring down the cost. So that's really, one of the highlights where incorporation prices have come down over the years. So the initial startup cost to simply get registered as a business is not as significant as it has been in the past or traditionally speaking. It's important. You will have to, of course, file separate taxes as well, because of course, when you set up a corporation, this is again, right, separation from yourself as an individual. So you'll still have your personal taxes that you have to file based on your personal income every single year, but your business is also going to file taxes for itself based on its fiscal year. And in addition to that, there's of course ongoing upkeep and ongoing paperwork, right? There's a lot of advantages as we've talked about for having a corporation set up. So it's not surprising that there's a little bit of compliance that needs to happen with the government, with again, filing your taxes and just making sure all your legal paperwork is in order. And again, the good news with that, Ownr helps with all of these aspects outside of the tax aspect, which I'll dive into a little bit later on. So this is probably one of those burning questions and probably one of top 3 questions maybe, Prasika, that we get, right? Which is, should I incorporate? When is the right time to incorporate? We've touched on both of these aspects already in this session, but just to give you a visual in terms of speaking about liability. If you are looking to incorporate and you're not sure if you should, you can consider this continuum, this spectrum of this tidal wave as, being a good gauge of should you incorporate or not. Starting on the left-hand side, it's very, low sailing, very smooth. There's not much risk associated here. Whereas on the right-hand side, depending on the nature of your business, the risks become higher. The costs, the risk becomes higher based on the nature of your industry and maybe the work that you do. So if someone's a marketing consultant and they're maybe creating websites for individuals, or they're giving, strategic marketing advice, that person probably doesn't have to incorporate right away for liability reasons, at least. But if you're on the farther end and you're maybe looking to set up a construction company, or maybe you are looking at opening a restaurant, or maybe you're in the healthcare space, or moving company, then you're working day to day with individuals, you're lifting heavy equipment, your machinery, you're serving people food, or you're dealing with people's bodies with healthcare and things like that. When you have those types of interactions, the risk significantly increases, of course, right? So that's something to certainly keep in mind, where if you're going to be operating in that space, I personally wouldn't start that business until I'm incorporated. So that's definitely something to be considerate about. You can also think about from an operational perspective. Are you going to have employees in your company as well? If you are, having employees will absolutely, of course, increase the level of risk that may be happening in your business, because of course there are other individuals tied to your company, right? So these are some of the factors to consider in terms of liability for when you may or may not want to incorporate. The other side of this, as we've talked about, is taxes. So just generally speaking, corporations are taxed at a lower tax rate than you and I as individuals, right? So if your corporation is making a lot of money and you're keeping that money in the business bank account and you're keeping it in the corporation for further growth and further investments, that tax rate is going to be a lot lower than what you and I, again, are taxed at the personal level if you were to take this money out, right? So it's a lot lower than what you would pay as a sole proprietorship or a partnership, because once again, right, when you're operating in that space, all of that is tied to your personal income. If you make 100K as a sole proprietorship, that's 100K for your taxable income. Whereas if you make 100K as a corporation and you only take out a fraction of that as an individual, you keep most of that money in the bank account, and for your corporation, it's taxed at a lower rate. There's also some capital gains exemptions in the event that your company blows up and it has a very high value, and you're able to sell it for a high cost. Individuals here in Canada are able to receive capital gains exemptions, where you may not have to pay a certain level of tax for making that much profit from what you bought your company for versus what you're selling it for, right? So if you are able to sell your company for $500,000 and you got set up and only paid like $10 for it, there is a capital gains exemption. If you are viewed as the owner of the company and you've had your shares for at least 2 to 3 years, there's certainly more elements to get into there. So if anyone does have questions about that, you can certainly reach out to us afterwards. So I'm just going to go over a couple of items here before I pass it over to Prasika to take everyone through the demo. If there's anything you do take away from this session today, I want to highlight maybe this slide, that incorporation is a 2-step process. A lot of folks may be familiar with the first step, which is going to the government, right? Going to the government to get your articles of incorporation. That's what a lot of folks are fixated on. Go get my name reserved with the government, and that's about it, right? If you did that, you only have half of your incorporation. What folks don't realize is you need your corporate organizational documents as well. This is also known as a minute book. You may or may not have heard of this term, but if you haven't, I certainly encourage you to get used to it, because that is something that, again, a lot of folks are not familiar with. And these are the corporate documents that fully organize your business to show that you own the company and you're directly involved. Things like your corporate bylaws, shareholder and director resolutions, our share registry, and share issuances. So if you went just to the government, you don't get this latter half. You would have to go to a lawyer to set it up. That could take more time. That could be more costly. That's why with Ownr, we do all of this for you and it's built into our price. And all of this is, again, taken care of for you from day one. So it's important to highlight that it is a 2-step process. You go to the government to get the incorporation documents, but you also need to make sure you own your own business. If I ask someone, do you own shares of your company? If you say yes, that's great. That means you have, your share issuances and you have your minute book. But there are a lot of folks who go straight to the government, and if you ask them, do you own shares of your company? The answer is probably no. And that means you don't actually own your company at all, which is not ideal for someone who's looking to start their own business. The last thing that I'll highlight here is obviously this is the process, and these are the steps that Prasika will kind of take us through in terms of setting up your corporation. I just wanted to really spend a couple minutes here talking about the different roles of the company. We talked about it earlier. The shareholders are the owners of the business. Units of shares, right, are of course how you quantify ownership. So as a shareholder of the company, you're the one who elects who the directors of the company are going to be. The directors of the mind of the corporation, they're the ones who deal with the day-to-day. Those are the ones that are listed publicly on the government sites. And they're the ones, of course, who hire the officers, CEO, president, vice presidents of the company. So we'll take you through this process on how to set this up through Ownr. So I'll pass it over to Prasika, and I'll also take a couple of minutes as she's getting set up here to talk about, and maybe I'll check in to see some of the questions that might be popping in here as Prasika looks to pull up our screen. So yeah, we're absolutely celebrating lower costs altogether, which is something we're excited about. And is there a particular question that I can maybe address right here?
So I think Trevor, actually referring to your question first was, are you referring to like a US company that you wanted to set up in Canada?
So what most startups do right now is they are Canadian based, but they decide to set themselves up as a Delaware corp as a means to, I guess, avoid taxes and things of that nature. So I'm just wondering what the Canadian implications are in being technically a US company operating within Canada.
Yeah, that's definitely a more technical question in nature, and definitely gets into some of the legal complications and like financial implications from both a legal and tax perspective. Generally speaking, if it's a US based company operating in Canada, that's fine. It's the same sense of if there's a Canadian company operating overseas. Your home base is the country that you're going to be setting up your business in, and by nature you are to adhere to the laws and the tax regulations of that particular jurisdiction, right? So if you are a US company operating in Canada, that's fine. But if you are to set up a Canadian based company, that's where Ownr comes in. That's where a lot of what we're talking about today comes in, where then you're going to be adhering to, again, the laws and regulations and tax implications of being a Canadian business. If it's based in the US, then it's a US based company. And again, it follows the pieces that would be, in the United States there. So yeah, with that said, I think we'll let Prasika go through, introduce us to Ownr a little bit more, and then we'll maybe take a pause to see if there's any more questions about the platform itself.
Okay. Yeah, there were some more questions, but we can get to that right after the demo because we might touch on some of them as we're going through it. Also, just apologies in advance if you hear a crying baby in the background. It's just my niece, but my mom is watching her, so she's going to be quiet, I hope. Okay, so this is the Ownr platform. As Calvin already mentioned, getting started can be complicated, but we try to make it as easy as possible. So to get started, it's really just as simple as clicking the Get Started button, and then it takes you directly to this portal here where you'll be able to answer a few questions so that we know exactly what type of business you're looking to set up, as well as how we can help you. So there was also a question about how you would be able to get some of those documents if you already incorporated. This would be exactly that. You would onboard your company selecting that you're existing. You'll select the province that you're operated in, and then you'll enter your company name. And then when you search it, it should come up in the database, and then you're just going to follow the prompts. And we can go through that, but I'm also going to show you just how to get started, because that's the main focus here. So you'll click next, the jurisdiction. We currently operate in Ontario, Alberta, and BC. So we can help you in all three of these places. And then finally, we do help with incorporations as well as sole proprietorships. And then it even gives you a little bit of a breakdown as to what kind of Calvin just gave you in terms of the differences between incorporation and sole proprietorships. And then once you select it, it will take you here. So this is where you're actually going to start inputting the information to create some of those legal documents. So first, it's just for your Ownr account, what we need. And then here where it says corporate information, this is a section where it's going to be building out your article of incorporation. So this part is going to be sent directly to the government. In Ontario, we do help you incorporate federally or provincially. Federally meaning your company will kind of be registered across all of Canada. So your company name will be recognized in all provinces, and then provincially is just within Ontario. There is a bit of a price difference too between the two, but we'll go through that as we get to it. So yeah, your registered address, this can be a home address, and then your industry, which is where you're going to be operating. This is not set in stone, so you can change this. Like you can have multiple different services within your company. This is more so just for the government to know from like a statistical perspective, how many people are operating under certain industries and where they're starting their businesses. And then fiscal year end, as Calvin alluded to, this is when you're going to be doing your taxes for your corporation. Little different from when you're setting up a sole proprietorship where it's the same for everybody. And then as you're going through, you're going to want to make sure you click next so that it actually saves all the information you're providing. So we do provide two different types of incorporations. You could do a named company or a numbered company. Numbered typically comes significantly faster because it's just a number that the government is going to assign to you, versus the named company needs to be approved. So one really, really cool feature that we have is we're tied directly to the government registry. So you can actually check and see if the company name that you're looking to use is taken or not. So right now I typed in consulting, and you can see here that it says there's an exact match for this name. But the thing is, you could also reserve the name ahead of time. So what you would do is you'd be able to click here, upload your nuance reservation, which is how you reserve the name. And it'll allow you to bypass. It also tells you if you have a very similar name. So these are all the other companies that have similar names or the exact same words in their company. It's likely that if you get this warning, the government may just reject the name because it's too similar, and then there'll be additional documents that you would need to set or additional forms that you would need to fill out explaining why your business is different. So this is just a good preliminary tool to make sure that you pass all the preliminary tests and it's not too similar to something else. So that's there. And then this is going to build out the rest of your documents. So director resolutions, shareholder resolutions, who's involved in the company. If it is just one person, the process is super simple. It'll automatically make you the sole director, the sole president, and the sole shareholder of the company. And if there are multiple people involved, you can go in here and then it'll actually take you through these steps. So the directors, you can go in and add additional people by clicking the add person here. And then officers, president too. So here you can actually add different roles. So treasurer, CEO. When you add the role here, it'll bring the drop down, and then you can just go in and click add the person accordingly. And then this is your shareholders. So this is who owns the company. It is different from directors and officers are kind of like people who are overseeing and managing the company, versus this is someone who just owns it. So there could be a silent investor in the company, and that would be someone, let's say, who has non-voting rights and owns 50% of the company. So you can do the simple mode where you just go in, you add someone, it makes it 50-50. What you could also do is, if you're looking for a more complex share structure, it'll actually take you to this page here. Hold on, let me make this smaller. Okay, it'll actually take you to this page here. This is where you can build out your share classes. So by default, we'll give you 2 share classes, A and B, common, voting and non-voting. Let's say, for example, and we can give you more information on what share classes are as well. We can meet even after this call if you want to speak with Calvin and I, but in a nutshell, it's kind of the type of shares that you're going to be issuing. So you can make it very specific where they're preferred, common, depending on maybe what your accountant suggests and how you're planning on building the company over the course of the year or over the course of the next few years. And then once you complete this part, it'll take you to the shareholders where you can actually issue the shares. So by default, we'll issue you 1,000 shares at 1 cent per share, which essentially means that you would be purchasing your company for $10. And you can change this dollar amount, but you just need to be cognizant of the fact that you will need to pay this amount to the corporation, and you need record of that transaction. And in a similar way, you just go in, you add the shareholder, and you can even get a little more specific. You can change the classes that they're issued shares in, as well as add vesting. And then once you've completed this part, it'll take you, right to the end, where we have the 2 different plans. In the basic way to explain it is the first plan is more of like a basic compliance plan, just making sure that you have all the legal documents that you need. And then the managed corporation plan is more so for corporations that are going to be experiencing a lot of growth within a short period of time and anticipate making a lot of changes to the corporation. So they need access to legal documents like an NDA, IP agreements, or financial agreements, for example, as well as make changes like bringing on new shareholders, issuing new shares, transferring shares, etc. This plan will help you facilitate it. And we have different add-ons that you'll be able to add to it depending on your needs. And then, as he also mentioned, we're an RBC company. So right after this, we built in the ability to create your business bank account right on our platform. And then that way we'll also be able to refund you $300 of the service fee. So that way you're actually only, if you go with the legal compliance plan, you're just paying the government fee or a little bit more. And then it's just the dashboard I'll quickly go through. So once you've actually completed the setup process, this is what your dashboard will look like. In this section here, it'll tell you anything that you have left to do. So if you have any documents that you need to sign, or if you have any pending changes, you'll be able to request the refund here once you've actually set up the company. And then there's also a lovely little checklist here that you can use so that you know what to do next, which is a really important question we get a lot. And then in terms of organization, this is all the information that you would get, your business number, corporation number, Ontario company key. And we do provide the GST number depending on the plan that you select. But this is something that you would request post incorporation. And then a bunch of other really cool features here. These are some of the legal documents that we have available. But yeah, this is the Ownr dashboard. So I'll just stop here for a second and see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, Priscilla, one question that came in that I think was worth addressing here, and I'll share my screen shortly after again as well. Can you change the share structure over time, or is it set in stone once you've set it up?
Yeah, so you can most definitely change the share structure. You would need to apply for an amendment. This is something that you would do. You have to apply, like any change that you make to the corporation after the incorporation step is going to cost you money because the government will have a filing fee associated to it. And in most cases, we kind of use the analogy that your share classes are kind of like floors to a building. It's difficult to add floors after the building has been built. So it's good to kind of have a good sense of what you need prior to getting the incorporation started. But it's not set in stone. You can definitely change it. If you're a federally incorporated company on Ownr, we can help you with that. But the other ones, you might have to go to an accountant or lawyer to help you.
Awesome. Any other questions from Priscika's demo right there about, obviously what she took you through was the flow, and as you saw, what was that, maybe about 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes all in all to kind of run through an incorporation setup. It really is that simple through Ownr. And again, our team is always here to help you every step of the way if you do have questions about this. So we can jump right back in, and I know Priscika is going to go and highlight some of the other aspects of what happens after you set up an incorporation, because that's a question we get a lot too. You paid for it, you're like, hey, I think I've done it, right? I have a business now what happens next? So yeah, these are some of the things to highlight.
Yeah, so as soon as you've incorporated, it is legally required for corporations to have a business bank account because you created a separate business entity. Think of it as a whole other person. So you're going to need an account for that, also to just manage all of your expenses. So again, a reminder with RBC, if you get it, we'll give you the $300 back. So that is built into our system. And then you need to pay for your shares. So as I mentioned, by default, what we do is if there's only one person involved, we'll give you 1,000 shares at 1 cent per share. So whatever dollar amount that you issue these shares at, they need to be paid. So once your corporation is all set up, you need to make sure that this is paid from your personal account into your business bank account so that the transaction has been made. And then in terms of setting up for payroll, import, export number, these are things that we can help you with if you set up with the managed corporation plan, which is a higher tier plan. But if you're not looking for those services, you can also we can also request it through us for $50, or you can call the CRA directly and they'll be able to help you with it too. And they'll set it up for free. And something to keep in mind in regards to getting the GST HST number set up is typically most people will need it once they reach the 30K mark, $30,000 mark. So if you're making more than that, it's good to have. And then also just consider registering early to obtain some tax credits. So I'll let Calvin speak a little bit more on that because he's a little better at explaining it than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the HST number, as we've highlighted here, the magic number is again, right, $30,000. So if you are close to hitting this number, you should definitely be registering for your tax number. And I wouldn't wait until you get to $29,999 before you decide to register for this number, right? Because there are benefits to potentially registering early. And the long story short of it is that if you end up really paying more taxes through your day-to-day business than you collect as a business, there are some tax credits available to you when you file your taxes for your corporation. So without diving too deep into that, because that is certainly more of an accounting question altogether, that is certainly something to highlight for folks to understand that this HST registration number is something we get a lot of questions about, and this is really your guide to like when should you explore doing so. So we're getting into the back half of the presentation now, and we're getting close to around 7. So we'll dive into these pieces that are a little bit more high level in nature. I know someone asked a question earlier about trademarking, so we'll dive into this really quickly. The quick disclaimer is Ownr doesn't directly help with trademarking or copyrights. These are things that are really nuanced in nature in the way they are set up in terms of the legal process and the cost as well. So from a trademarking perspective, we do have a partner, as Prasika highlighted in the chat, called Halu. That is one of our Ownr partners that, you know, if you sign up as an Ownr user, you do get access to a discount to their services, but they're the ones who we would often refer folks over to from a trademark perspective. So
Kevin, sorry, before we continue, Prabaria actually had 2 questions. If we can just quickly go over them before we jump into it. So can an e-commerce business sell products to customers in the US as a sole proprietor, and how would the sales tax / GST work? I think that's more of like a accounting question, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit more of an accounting question, but generally speaking, can a sole proprietor sell things to the folks in the US? Absolutely, you can sell things online as a retail, like an Etsy store, as a as the Amazon fulfillment business. There's a lot of these that we're seeing pop up over the last couple of years, especially given the pandemic. From a tax perspective, a lot of the technologies that are in place these days, in terms of like the point of sale systems that you use to make the transaction, they're really good at picking up sort of where is that customer based, and they'll be charged tax accordingly. Ultimately, for your corporation, you're paying taxes for where you're based, which is going to be, here in Ontario, for example, and you're paying Canadian taxes. But what your customers pay is really going to depend on where they're at, and it's really working with the merchants that you work with to be able to determine how much and who gets what type of taxes are charged altogether. Yeah, and was there a second question as well?
The second one was, can we set up the import-export number under sole proprietorship?
Yeah, so with the sole proprietorship, you are able to get a business number, you're able to get a tax number, and all of these pieces as well. So that's something that you can certainly do through the CRA. I haven't heard of I haven't seen a sole proprietorship personally get a import and export number directly, but that is certainly something that when you talk to the folks at the CRA to get your tax numbers, to get your payroll and export numbers, that is certainly a conversation that they're probably better equipped to answer. So definitely check in with those folks if you have questions about getting your import export number through the CRA for a sole proprietor. For an incorporation, I know for a fact that, as Prasika highlighted in the dashboard, you can directly request that through us. So I guess just I think that's it for now, right? In terms of the questions. Yeah, okay, awesome. So really quickly into copyright and trademark. I won't take up too much time here. Copyright is simply just the exclusive right to copy creative work that is, or allowing someone else to copy creative work. And it usually applies to artistic forms of creation. So music and art, that's where copyright comes in, where you're either allowed to copy this, or you've given someone the right to copy this, right? And you see this a lot, obviously when it comes to artists, creating music, and there's copyright infringement and so forth, movies, TV shows, and so forth. Trademark is probably more applicable to the entrepreneurs that we talk to on a daily basis, because trademark is for a word or design that is used to identify a good or service of an organization or identifying a person. So we often get asked, does registering your business name protect the business name? And the short answer is actually no. When you register your business name, yes, you are registering it either in the province or across Canada, as Prasika mentioned, if you do a federal incorporation. But that isn't the truest form of name protection. Trademarking is doing so. Trademarking allows you to truly protect the name, the brand that's associated with your company, and is the ultimate form of protection. So it's a really good idea to obviously explore this if you have a valuable product or you have a valuable brand name that you're exploring. But of course, as we've mentioned, this can be costly. It can be time consuming. So if you do have questions about trademark, we can definitely share a link to our partners over at Halu. And I would encourage you to reach out to those individuals who definitely can speak to this in a lot more greater detail. And the last section that we're going to highlight is ongoing compliance. So you've set up your corporation, you've signed all the paperwork that we've set up initially. What else do you have to do? I mentioned off the bat that there's a lot of advantages for incorporating a business, right? There's liability protections, there's tax advantages. It helps you more formalize your business and get established. So what is the upkeep? What is the ongoing compliance that you need to do? Well, as we've highlighted, a sole proprietorship is really simple. You don't have a lot of these things to deal with. There isn't a separate tax return. There isn't an annual return. But with a corporation, there is a little bit more upkeep. The two main returns that our people need to be aware of are your tax returns and your annual returns. Most people know about the tax returns. I think if you asked anyone, I think in this room, right? If we talked about, does your corporation need to file taxes? You'd be, yeah, absolutely. But then if I asked you if you need to file an annual return, you'd be like, what is that? Right? So that's the part that we here at Ownr are trying to educate or trying to help people understand, that maintaining your company's compliance involves two returns to file every year. So again, your tax return of an accountant, a bookkeeper, someone on the financial services side can definitely help you out with that. With your annual returns, that needs to be filed to the provincial or federal governments, and that's where Ownr can come in and help you do so. So what is involved in an annual return? So keeping your company active and keeping your company in good standing is really what filing your annual returns encompasses. It involves a set of documents that the government is looking for to receive updates on what your company's activities have looked like over the past year. These do need to be filed every year, and there is a risk of the government dissolving your corporation if you don't file this, right? So that's just one of those headaches that you don't want. And from time to time, we do have customers coming through Ownr and they go, the government sent me a notice that I haven't filed my annual returns. And obviously there's risk associated with that. You don't want to find yourself in that position where you're scrambling to, maintain your compliance when this can be really simply taken care of on a year-to-year basis. So what that really entails is filing your shareholder resolutions, your director resolutions, and Ownr helps you with all of these things. All right, so every year when your annual returns are due, we will notify you when your annual returns are coming up, and we will prepare the documents for you. So a shareholder resolution, a director resolution, and an appointment of auditor. Some of these pieces, when you're thinking, I'm just a one-person business, do I really need to do all this? The answer is still yes, right? But if you are a one-person business and you have a shareholder meeting, you're thinking, well, am I just going to be having a meeting by myself, and am I just going to talk to myself? It's really simple to kind of get over this, which is through the resolutions that we provide for you. You can accomplish what the government is asking for through a specifically formatted document through the legal resolution that we provide, and you're able to bypass that requirement from the government by fulfilling that form. Same thing with appointing an auditor. Every corporation is required to hire an auditor to audit your business. That can be costly, that can be time consuming. If all shareholders sign off in the company that this isn't required, then you're able to waive the appointment of an auditor for your company. So again, these are things that you don't think about necessarily, but are required from the government perspective of keeping your company compliant. And we'll make sure that these are provided for you every step of the way. So as a whole, right, as we've talked about, Ownr is here to keep your company up to date with any changes to your company. If you were to add a director, if you were to change your address, when you file your annual returns, all of these documents will live in one place for you to access, for you to manage your company, to help it grow and to nurture it into the future, so that you are able to be, you're able to put legal on autopilot, essentially, right? We'll take care of your legal compliance so that you can focus on your day-to-day business growth and day-to-day operations, because these aren't things you want to have as headaches and things that are chasing you down. So this is really where Ownr comes in as an ongoing support to help you manage your business from the time of inception through to, of course, whatever successes lie ahead of you. So I'm not going to go through this slide. This will be available, I think, in the PowerPoint that is shared to the broader group afterwards. But these are some of the things to think about and say, why would I need a certain document to accompany a certain type of change in my company? Why do I need a certain filing when I add or remove a director? So this is a really helpful guide for what types of documents you need when you make a specific change in your business. So the very last thing to highlight is this promo code that we have available to you. This will give you that 20% discount, which is definitely one of our more sizable discounts on the incorporation packages, taking it off the Ownr fee, because of course we can't discount the government. But of course there are other resources available to you. So through webinars like these, through workshops, through YouTube videos, we have a wonderful blog that we have new articles coming out every day that really do speak to different entrepreneurs in different stages that they're at, whether it's starting their business, growing their business, managing it, and so forth. We've highlighted Halu as one of our business partners. There's an owner's perk section that all in all give you over $15,000 in savings. So with companies like TELUS and Moneris and Etsy and and Vistaprint, right? These are companies that you can take advantage of discounts through their services when you are a user of Ownr. And I'd be remiss if I didn't once again highlight that we are an affiliated RBC company. So when you set up your business bank account with RBC, you get that $300 back, which really, again, makes incorporating really affordable. So that is pretty much it from the presentation side today. I'll stop sharing my screen and would love to hear if there's any other questions from the group. And if there's anything else that you'd like myself or Prasika to address, we'll certainly be able to connect with folks afterwards through email. We'll provide our contact details if anyone wants to reach out to us.
So I'll just read, there's like just a few questions that we have. So regarding the annual returns, we actually renew at $199 on the basic compliance plan. So that would be the fee that we charge to file these documents. You could also get this done through an accountant or lawyer, but I'd say that this is a more cost-efficient way to get that done. So that's where the annual return legal compliance part comes in. All right, Shiromi, thanks for joining. And then the other question we had was, I registered my sole prop a few years ago through Ownr, but now I'd like to limit my liabilities and changing the business structure. I don't think incorporation is necessary for me. Is there an alternative I can transition, or can I do this online through Ownr?
Yeah, did you want?
Yeah, so
yeah,
you can take it if you like.
Yeah, I think in short, if you are looking to limit your liability, as we've highlighted kind of throughout this presentation, incorporation is the way to go about. You know, if you're thinking that you don't think incorporation is necessary for you, we'd love to have a conversation with you to understand why you think that is. As we've talked about, incorporation can be a one-person business. It's a formal structure that gives you that liability protection that is different from what a sole proprietorship is able to offer you. And then of course, Ownr is online. So yes, absolutely, you'd be able to accomplish this. So yeah, please do reach out to myself or Prasika if you'd like to chat about this some more. We'd love to learn about your business and again, what's going through your mind right now as you're looking to level up here.
Yeah, I think that's all for the questions. So maybe we'll pass it back to Amal or Marisol. Calvin, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I don't think there is. We'll drop our emails into the chat right here. So if anyone does want to reach out to us, you can absolutely do so. Yeah, thank you for having us. Again, an absolute pleasure to speak with entrepreneurs who are curious about these pieces and are always looking to learn more.
Yes, and a huge thank you to Marisol and Amal, and really, really big applause for Amal for doing such an amazing job today. It was her first presentation. You guys couldn't even tell.
Thank you so much, Calvin and Prasika. Amal, if you can please put the slide for the
I think
Marisol cutting out. Yeah. But I think I'm all,
I think she was just saying to upload the slides because the code and everything is in there and all the information. But yeah, Marisol's out. Yeah, we'll send an email with the slides and all the information regarding that. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or Marisol or Amal. They'll be able to help. It was such a pleasure meeting everybody.
Sorry, we had some technical difficulties there. But I'm back. Thank you, Amal, for sharing the feedback form. We really appreciate your feedback on this. We like to get better at what we do. So anything you have to say, please share it with us in your feedback form. And again, thank you again, Calvin and Prasika. We will share the feedback to the Ownr team also, so we can keep communicating through that too. And yeah, thank you, everybody. And Amal, if you can please put the slide of the channels to keep in contact, just to say goodbye to everybody. And thank you again. Have an amazing evening.
Okay. See you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Amal, I think we can stop the recording now too. Yeah.